Okay, I'm ready for the question. Yes.
As per the settings, do you want us to adjust to your settings? I saw that the colors, for me, that was really interesting that you have the
Mm-hmm.
colors for the
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
tuning, but orbs, this kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
From the moment that we got the software,
Uh-huh.
now you are offering like courses. Is there any difference from like what it comes from the company and your
Okay,
own thing?
I will cover all that. So yes, I will tell you, you will see how it comes from the box and mine is modified. So I will talk about it. I will show you how you can change the setting, the color. I will show you that, okay? Not to worry. But since you mentioned the color, I'll repeat what I said last time. I think that the color is very important. I'm very visual. And I like to use the color coding to direct my attention into what I want to look at. So if I separate the traditional planets from the Uranian planets and from the asteroid by using different color, it's easier on the brain. I'm telling you, the brain is not loaded as much because we look at tons of information. A lot of stuff is on the screen all the time. So you have to help yourself by separating what you need to look at. So colors for me is very important. That's all I'm going to say. You don't have to use the same color. You can use whatever color speaks to you. I chose these colors. And again, the colors is also when you choose different colors, it has to stand out. So it's not too dark, not too light, things like that. So you'll do your own preferences, but it's a good idea to use color coding. Was there another question?
No,
Okay.
no, thank you.
Oh, okay, good. Let me start. So I'm starting by reviewing what we did last time, which was the first time. And I started with, well, with not with this one. I started with this one. The principles, the what distinguishes the Uranian system. And I discussed each and every point, and it's in the recording. By the way, you did get the recording, the
Mhm.
link, and it's on YouTube, and it's available, and I'm not removing that. So it's going to be there definitely as long as the class is, which is 8 weeks, but I'll keep it there even longer, okay?
Mhm.
So it will be available to you to go back to any one of them and review and review and review. So for now, it's there and it will be there. And you're the only one who has the link. This doesn't go anywhere. And I'm asking you to keep it for yourself only because it's part of the class and that's it.
Mhm.
So that's about the recording. I mustn't forget I had Julia, you're there. Julia, you asked me about the upcoming webinar that I mentioned. Uh,
Thanks. Yeah.
yes, I misspoke because I already did it for that group. So it's not coming up, but it's coming up for the NCGR. And I don't remember the date. I need to check with Jackie Slevin. I promised to do the same lecture for the NCGR. So I'll verify the date and I'll send it. I'll give everybody this information. The lecture that Julia was talking about is what I said about Ptolemy, Kepler, and Alfred Witte, the historical connection between the main characters in the development of our tradition. And it's a very useful and good information. That's all. So yes, it will be coming, but not from that Kepler group. Okay. So among this list, the 11 points, which I'm not going to repeat, I will discuss one more time the the number two, the 0 degrees of the cardinal signs, which we call Aries point, and I'll tell you why I just said last time, I just said that it's used, that it's one of the principle. I didn't explain why. So today I'm going to explain a little bit of the why it's that, where this comes from. I will discuss the aspect today, and on and on and on. One sec. Yeah. Amanda, what you asked me, or what, at least I think what you asked me, is number 9. The midheaven describes the eye, the ascendant describes others. So I can come back to it maybe at some point, if
Okay.
necessary. But it's an interesting topic, and I mentioned a few things last time, but I don't want to repeat last time.
And I was really, I think it's really cool on the cardinal. I want to know the cardinal, the 0 degree, what you're going over today.
That it's coming. It's coming. Okay. Okay. So this is what I want to do today. And before I go to that one, I just want to review quickly the keywords that I covered in detail last time. Okay.
Mhm.
So I covered it in detail, and I drew your attention to the text in red for each one, the essence or the core. It could be the core meaning. And it's important, if you know the core, if you understand the core, then you can understand all the other words. Now, I don't expect you to memorize all that list, but it's up to you to memorize, or at least relate to. All I'm asking you is to relate to it, because once we look at charts, I will bring up this one or the other one, and you will not relate to what I'm saying. So I strongly recommend that you go over these keywords, and you have them in the handout. You don't need to go back to the recording. I sent you the handout. It's in text. Then review them more than once so you begin to relate to them in the same way that you relate to the regular planets. If you see Uranus in a regular chart, you relate to it immediately. If you see Saturn, you relate to it immediately. In the same way, I want you to relate to these 8 babies, okay? These 8 TNPs. And if you get the core, the essence, and then the derivations, it's a good start. Okay. Eventually, I will also discuss how to use the book, and these words are in the book as well. So you will once we get to the book, the rules of planetary pictures, you will recognize all these words. You will recognize them. They all come from the book. Okay? Okay. So this is the plan. So I said I'm going to do the 0 degrees of the Aries point, where that comes from. Some of you studied with me level 1 and so on. So you went through the astronomy with me. And I'm going to take you back to astronomy for that purpose. Some of you will remember because we covered it in class. If it's new for you, then welcome to the to astronomy. So this is where I start. And I need to remember, hold on. Okay, I need to bring up this one. Yeah, 70, 71, 70, okay. 107. I need to remember which slides to go to. Okay. I'm changing the PowerPoint, and I'm bringing up astronomy. Some of you who studied with me will recognize what I'm going to show. Okay. Okay. So I'm about to discuss what we call the Aries point, which is represents the 0 degrees of all the cardinal signs and where it comes from. And I'll put it in another bigger context. So I start with this slide. Now I'm going to be very brief because we're not studying astronomy today, but I have to use astronomy to some extent. Everybody's here. Let me see. Yes, okay. So this page has 4 diagrams, and I'm going to refer to the diagram bottom left, because I need to make it quick. The diagram at the bottom left. This whole page, all the four of them, represents the relationship between the Earth and the Sun. The Earth and the Sun. And this is the diagram A. You see Earth and the Sun. Diagram B on top is the Earth and the Sun, 4 points in the year, 4 positions around the year, and the hemispheres, the seasons, and so on. Diagram C, bottom left, is how we get the zodiac. What is the zodiac coming from? What is that division of the 12 sections in the sky? And I'm going to make it simple. You look at this, at the center, you see the Earth. And you see the red line right here is the equator. The green line, no, let me say it again. The red line is the equator on Earth. This equator on Earth is projected into space, and it's called the celestial equator. You see celestial equator. So that's the equator in space, out there in space. Then we have the ecliptic, which is the path of the Earth around the Sun, or the Sun around the Earth. This is the ecliptic. And this ecliptic is represented with a green line also. So it's like parallel. The green line is parallel the ecliptic. So we have two circles. One is the ecliptic, which is the path of the Sun. The other one is the celestial equator. And they have an angle between them because they're tilted. There's an angle. 23.5 is the angle. When you have an angle between two circles, then you have a crossing point, the intersection, the two red points. These are intersections. And our tropical zodiac is based on that. This is the tropical zodiac based on the intersection between the celestial equator and the ecliptic. The diagram on the right side is the same one, only now the celestial equator is horizontal and the ecliptic is on the angle, but it's the same diagram and the same crossing point. Now they're green, two crossing point. And I added the two red points, which are the solstice points. These 4 points is what the Sun does around the year. The Sun comes to the crossing point, and which we call Aries. The Sun comes to the highest point, which is the solstice point, comes to the other crossing point, which we call Libra, and the other solstice point, which is the zero Capricorn. So we have 0 Aries, 0 Cancer, 0 Libra, 0 Capricorn. And just from the diagram, you can see that they are markers. They're markers what the Sun does around the year. These are the 4 points where the Sun gets to do something. And they all come from the fact that there is a crossing point. 2 circles intersect. Keep that in mind because this is where I'm taking you to the next diagram, okay? So we're talking about crossing point of 2 circles. And this is that one was my hand-drawn. This is from the internet, I took it, but it's the same idea. The 2 circles intersecting, and we have the 0 degrees of the 4 cardinal signs. 0 Aries, 0 Libra is on the equator. 0 Cancer and 0 Capricorn, the green ones, are above and below, north and south of the equator. And these are the 4 cardinal points and the 4 cardinal signs in the tropical zodiac. Now I'm going to number 107. Okay. (107). Some of you recognize all this stuff. Oops. Come on. Okay. Here we go to another crossing point. And that's the lunar nodes. The diagram top left explains everything. I don't need to say much. You've seen that before, right? Some of you? Rosanna says yes, of course. The lunar nodes also resulting from the intersection between two circles. One circle is the ecliptic, where the sun is. The other circle is the orbit of the moon, the lunar orbit, because they also have an angle between them. So we are talking about intersection of angles, of circles. And those intersections create sensitive points. Now you're beginning to see the common thread here. We're talking about intersection. Now we go to another set of intersection. So, I don't need to say more than this. The red dot and the blue dot are the nodes. Agreed? And one is north, one is south, because from the north is where the orbit of the moon goes north of the ecliptic. The south is where the orbit of the moon goes south of the ecliptic. That's it. But it's the intersection itself that really matters. Now I'm going to go to number 142, which is the jewel in the crown. You will recognize that. Those of you who did it with me. Those of you who did not, my explanation today should be sufficient. And now we're talking about the midheaven. How is the midheaven created? Again, intersection. Mind my word, intersection. What's the intersection? You see on top, you see where it says Aries and a red dot? That red dot is the extension of the local meridian. You see meridian, the word meridian. Meridians are the circles that run around the earth from pole to pole, North Pole to South Pole. So these are meridians. And this particular one where the girl is standing is the girl's local meridian. And this local meridian, which is on Earth, you can see the meridians in the diagram here, the globe here on the side, on the left side, on the right side. These are meridians. This meridian is projected into space. Now it's a celestial meridian, and it has a crossing point with the ecliptic. And this is the midheaven. So we are talking about crossing point between circles. Are you with me on that? You see what I'm telling you? Everything is crossing point. And these are the most sensitive points in the chart. The degree of the midheaven, as you remember, is the one that's most sensitive to transit, to solar arc, to progression, to everything. And these are not planets. None of these is a planet. They're all a point, an abstract point in space. It's not a planet. There's nothing there. It's the imagination. And this is the midheaven. Now we come to the ascendant and we get the same story, another intersection. And you will remember this. Here's the ascendant. Now we have another circle, the horizon right here, celestial horizon. There are two red dots, intersection in the east and in the west. Intersection with what? With the ecliptic, with the zodiac. Do you see the common thread? Circles intersecting. And out of these circles that I pointed out, the midheaven and the ascendant, you recognize as sensitive points. You know that, you know it all along. And what I'm trying to tell you and what the Uranian system does is that the lunar nodes being intersection and the Aries and the Libra are being intersection. Remember the tropical zodiac? So that makes them just as much a sensitive point, because when two circles intersect, it's 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 a hot spot. Why that is so, it's a whole other kind of thinking. I have some thoughts. This is not the time for my thoughts, because I always wondered about it. Why intersection of a circle that's not even real? You cannot touch it. It's in space on paper. You imagine it. Why would that be a hot spot? Why is it a hotspot? It responds to solar arc, transit, progression, you name it. It's a hotspot. It's alive. Alive and kicking. What makes it live? I don't know, but it's live. So this is what they all have in common. But from this point on, you can agree with me intellectually. I will need to prove to you that it's not just intellectually, it works. When we have planets on the Aries point, which is the cardinal points, works just as much as planet on the ascendant, planet on the node, just as much. The same level of effect. Okay? I'm not going to say more because if I say more, I'll repeat myself. But all I wanted to do is show you why I can say that the four cardinal points are just as sensitive as, especially the Aries and the Libra, as the midheaven and the ascendant and the lunar node as well. I rest my case, and now I did that. So now we're moving to the topic of aspects. I'm back to the main document which I use for the teaching of this class. Okay, need to move my screen around a little bit. Okay. So we've covered this one and we reviewed, and now we talk about aspects. I said last time that in this system, the focus is on hard aspect. I'm not telling you not to use the soft aspect. I'm suggesting that you leave the soft aspect for the traditional plan, traditional, not for this one. Here, we live in another world. We moved into another part of the building, and in this part of the building, we use hard aspects. So what are the hard aspects that we'll be using? As simple as all the numbers on the left side, and that's it. Which is division of the circle, and I'm here. Hard aspect, hard disharmonious aspect. These are the divisors, the number we divide by. Divide by 2, divide by 4, and so on. So it starts with conjunction. Divide by 2 gives you an opposition. Divide by 4 gives you 90. I'm pretty sure that you're not using this one. Maybe you do, I don't know. 45 and 135. Note the name. 45 is an octile. Octile comes from the number 8, the divisor. Clear? Clear. Octile, it's an 8, means 8. The 8 is the divisor. What is the 135? That's 3 times 45, sesquiquadrate. Why 35? Why do 3 times 35? 45? That will come next. And by the way, that started from Kepler. Johannes Kepler started using that, not before. You don't find any use of these numbers in prior to that, in Hellenistic or medieval, none of that. It starts with Johannes Kepler, and he was a mathematician, and he liked aspects a lot. He believed in aspects more than anything else. So we have 45 and the multiple of 45. So one sesquiquadrate is a multiple of. That's the idea. It's a multiple, okay? It's not a random number. It's a multiple of the 45. But we go below that in our system. I'm divide by 16, by 32, and by 64. And look at the results. The numbers get smaller and smaller. Now, by 16, which is 22 and a half, and I will prove to you that it works. I have one case to show you, at least one case. The name is semi-octile because it's half of the 45. Sometimes it's easier to use a name than actually say the numbers. So if I can have a name, octile, semi-octile, it's easier to talk about it, okay? And you used to names, you used to square or position, so these have names. The last two don't have names. You cannot have names. This is divide by 32 and you get tiny, tiny 11 and a quarter. Believe it or not, even this one, the tiniest, 5 and 5/8. And you are asking, does it work? Is it crazy? And we'll talk about it and we'll show you that it does work, but only on the 90-degree dial, it's easy to see. Can see it in other ways, but when we will do nova in the dial, you'll see why it makes it super easy to observe these tiny aspects and the fact that they work. So these are numbers that you want to etch in your brain and memory. But the dial will help you because you don't have to calculate anything with the dial. It's all visual. You will see those aspects visually. You just have to trust them. With the new aspects and a new tool, you have to trust it. Will it work? After so many years, I trust it blindly, blindly. But I hope that you will work with it enough to begin to trust it on your own. I cannot give you my trust. You have to experience it yourself by using them. Without doing it, it's just nice to just entertainment. Okay, so these are the aspects that we will be using. That's it. Okay. Look at the comment here, by the way, about the octile at the bottom. The octile aspect, and I'm including the sesquic quadrant. The octile aspect was known and used by the old astrologers for the phases of the moon only. So if you go back to the phases of the moon theory, you will see that each one of these aspects gets like a station of the moon in the cycle of the month. But that's a cycle of the new moon. But that I'm not teaching that. I'm not doing that. But I'm saying to you that somehow the circle was divided down to this level, but it appears only in the phases of the moon, nowhere else. Okay. And the phases of the moon, by the way, were used in medieval astrology for medical astrology. It's called the Cumberland chart. How do you analyze if the person is going to make it or not when they fall ill and so on? That's medieval. But that's it. So before I leave, just look at the numbers, look at the fact that it's divided by 2, by 4, by 8, etc. There's a whole sequence there, a whole symmetry. Okay, next. What do I have here? Same thing. We don't need that. So now I'm going to explain the fact that when we look at those hard aspects, we don't necessarily try to figure out if one of them is stronger than the other or not. So we're looking for the fact that everything makes an aspect, and when two planets are in aspect, any one of those combinations, they resonate together. It's like resonance. They vibrate together. They resonate. So I'm going to go through something very kind of intriguing intellectually and then leave it alone. Because I can just tell you hard aspect and leave it alone, but I want to add something. So if you look at the zodiac, the two circles on the top, the zodiac is 360. And if you divide it by 2 and turn one around, you can see that the zodiac is actually a wave. That's what I'm trying to tell you. The zodiac circle is a wave. A wave. It's like a wave. The red line is the equator. Look at the image on the left. The red line is the equator. And the blue line is the ecliptic, which is the zodiac. And so because part of the ecliptic is north of the equator, part of the other one is south, then here is the south and the north. So this is the zodiac around the earth. Can you see that, visualize that? The idea, we just get the idea that we're dealing with a wave. I'll go through it very quickly because you don't need it for interpretation. I just want to show you some theory behind it, that's all. So now this is the wave again, the same thing. And now I'm showing you that you can describe the wave like this with the signs, with the zodiacal signs. The blue line, the horizontal blue line is the equator again. We're talking about a wave. The zodiac is a wave. Now we take the wave and we begin to divide the wave. And here's the division. Just look at the numbers from top to bottom. You see what I've done. I divide by 2 where it says 180. Now we have the 2 parts. Now inside the 180, there's a smaller wave that completes this, and this is the 90. So we have another wave inside, a smaller wave inside the big wave. And we can continue from the 90, divide the 90 into a smaller wave, and we have the 45. See bottom 45? And it's the yellow dot. So now we have at the bottom, we have all the hard aspect, one inside the other, like Russian dolls, like one inside the other. If the wave is a frequency, we're talking about frequencies. If the wave is a frequency, then all the smaller one are smaller, higher frequency included in the small in the bigger frequency. So these are like literally like frequency of waves. And this is called harmonics. I don't want to spend too much time, but this is known as the harmonic theory. So aspects, when you follow this division, aspects are a series of harmonics. What do I have here? Same thing. This is the text is same explanation and also discussing what harmonics is. So we're going to leave this alone. But this is the same idea. The wave is divided, divided, divided. And if I could, I would divide it further, but it would be too small. I can go from the 45, I can go to the semi-octile and on and on. I can go down and down. But that's the idea. But the idea is also that when you have a planet in any one of these dots, the yellow, the blue, the red, any one of these dots, if you have two planets, one on the yellow, one on the red, and another one on the blue in the sequence. If they are exactly at those places, then they resonate together. They vibrate together because they are in the same harmonic. Okay. So now we convert that. Okay. Now these dots, these harmonic or these waves, now we compare them to degrees in the zodiac. And you see the 0 and the 360. Now you see the 180 in the middle, 0 Libra, and that's the middle. And now you see that Cancer is 0 Cancer is right here, and 0 Capricorn is right here. But now we go below that. Now we go to the semi-square. And look at Taurus, 15 Taurus. 15 Taurus is exactly 45, agreed? 45 from the 0. So 45 is this dot here. Taurus 15, 45 is 15 Taurus. Now here's the sexual quadrant, another 45, and that's 15 Leo. Another 45, and that's Scorpio. Another 45 is the Aquarius. So you see the advance by 45. This line here is a sequence of 45. So a planet in any of these positions, one can be at 15 Taurus, another one can be at 15 Leo, another one can be at 15 Aquarius. They're all on the same frequency. The frequency is 45. In our language, take it into astrology, they're all in aspect. They're all in aspect. So these frequencies are aspects, translate into aspects. They make the wheel resonate. Now, we will see it on the dial. We will see how these are represented on the dial in such an easy visual way that you will not need to think about these things. Just want to show you where it's coming from. So 15 degrees of the fixed sign, Taurus, Leo, is also an aspect. Okay? Aspect with a zero cardinal. We'll see that. So this is the same thing basically. And I just brought in, I just combined two lectures, so it's the same thing. So I'm done with that explanation, with showing how the hard aspect is a series of numbers all contained with one another. 45 is included in the square, and the square is included in the opposition, and the opposition is included in the total wheel. See, they're included in one another. The 22.5 is also included up, they move up and down, one included in the other. So I'm done with that. And now I'm going to explain how the dials show that. So now I'm moving to the dial. What I did right just now is just talk a little bit about hard aspects and where they come from. Now I'm moving here. We actually don't need it, but I'll go through it quickly. I'm saying that Witte, who was a land surveyor by profession, created the rotating dial in order to investigate symmetries. So there's a symmetry going on, symmetries and aspects. Okay. And actually, the first one that was created was the 360. That was the first dial, not the 90, this one. And that was a big innovation by itself. I think I say that the invention of the dial is one of the most important innovations in the 20th century astrology, because it's beyond aspect. It's a whole philosophy there. So this is the short story of where it comes from. The 90-degree dial came later, and it was not as a big drama. This was a big, not drama, but big innovation, because it's a moving disk. The 90-degree dial came later, and it was a natural development from this dial. Okay. Let me continue. And I'm going to start with the 360. I do not work with a 360, but it's a good intro into the 90, so I'm going to start there. So you see a regular chart on the left and what it looks like on the 360 on the right. Now, instead of showing it to you as a still picture, I'm going to move to the actual dial, and it's going to be much nicer to see it alive, okay? So I chose Mr. Musk because I found some aspect there that are good to for demonstration. So we have Musk on the 360 dial. Now, before we, let me quickly move to the regular dial. Oops, I'm sorry. For him, this is his regular chart. And now the ascendant is 13 Cancer, midheaven 28 Aries, okay, and the planets, etc. So on the 360, what can the 360 do for us? The planets are, when I leave the dial as is, and I showed it to you last time with the Pope Francis, but I did it very quickly. The planets are arranged around in their proper sign, okay? Why Cancer is on top, I don't have time to explain. Because normally you don't expect to see Cancer on top. You expect to see Capricorn on top, right? That's a whole explanation on astronomy. I'm not going there now. There's a reason for that. But it's the right sequence. Cancer, Libra, etc., all around. And all the planets are marked in the right zodiacal place, but they're not marked on the dial. The dial is moving. The planets stay where they are. The dial, the arrow is moving. The pointer is moving. And the pointer, the dial itself, has all the aspects marked on it. I said that last time, didn't I? Yes? No? Okay. The arrow is a reference point. The arrow on the other side, the small arrow, that's opposition. You see the small arrow? Opposition. Two more small arrows here on the right and on the left, they are the squares. Square to the main arrow, okay? So you see like a T-square. The main arrow, the opposition, and the two squares. So the red arrows give us the main division, okay? But we also have semi-square. Here's the black dot. You see the black dot? Semi-square, half the square. Here is another one. Here is another one, and here is another one, okay? The division goes further. From the semi-square, it goes to which is an octile, we go to the semi-octile. This one is 22.5. You see the dot here? 22.5. And another 22.5. and another 22.5, and another one, and another one, all around. So now we have the dial divided into opposition, square, semi-square, octile, and semi-octile. The dial itself, you see that? You see what I'm saying? Which is those are numbers we saw in the wave, in the image of the wave. Okay? So this is and we even have the smaller dots, but they're not visible here. They will be visible on the 90-degree dial. Here, that's what we see. Opposition, square, octile, semi-octile. This dial also has soft aspect if you want to use it. The soft aspect are marked with numbers. You see, I'm pointing, you see 30 and 60 and 90 and 120. You see the numbers? I don't use that, but if you wanted to find trines, you could do that too. But I don't use this dial at all. I use the 90, but this, like I said, it's a good intro. So this is the 360. By placing the arrow on any planet, I can see if it makes any other aspects. And I did that before class, so let me start. The arrow is now at the Cancer point. Remember, 0 degrees cardinal signs. I don't call it Cancer, just call it the Aries point. Look at the node. The node are on an octile dot. The black dot is octile, 45. Agreed? This means that from the node to the main arrow, it's 3 times 45. From here, from the node to this one to here is 45, and another one here is 45, and another one, sesquiquadrate, 3 times 45, right? And I'm telling you that the fact that this is so precise, that means that the node, here is how a Uranian astrologer would call it, node equal Aries. Node makes an aspect with the Aries point. Is it meaningful? You bet. Because the Aries point, like I said last time and today, is where we connect with the world. The nodes by themselves, the lunar nodes also mean connection. So when you have the symbolism of connection doubled, repeated, that's major connection. If you see it in a chart of someone, you know that these people are connected all around. Connected, social and other ways. This is connection. And normally you might not even see it in a regular chart, but this jumps off the page because it's all visual. I have the dots. I have the dots and the arrow. I don't need to think. Jumps off the page. There's more, but this is kind of very obvious. This is a little bit too far, Kronos and so on, Kronos. I marked, hold on. I marked a few things that I wanted to show. I didn't write it down. The symmetries. I'm going to have a wing it. Okay. Okay, I'll just cover it now. Okay. Where did I saved it? Wait a minute. Where did I save that? I saved it visually somewhere. Just before class I did it. Anyway, I'll kind of remember what I did. I'll do it live on the dial.
The moon, for example.
No. Wait. No. I need to point. Yeah. I'm sorry. Thanks, Stephanie. Yes. The moon is on the semi-octile, the 22.5. You see that? This means that the moon is also connected. So now we have the moon with the node, with the Aries point, three-way connection. You see what I'm saying?
Mm.
And the node is connection with the public, the Aries is connection, and the moon is connection. We know that the moon is popularity. The moon is people. So this is connection upon connection upon connection. That's a major feature of the person, the ability to connect with the world through the node, through the moon, and through the Aries point. Let me poke around to discover some more, and then I want to talk about symmetry. Let me see anything that I can. I'm looking around. Just I'm the arrow is now on Cronus, and I hope you remember what Cronus is. The arrow is on Cronus. The square is on the moon, exact, and without numbers, it's all visual. Do you need a number? No, it's the visual. So we have connection between Cronus and the moon. We know it's a square, but we don't care. It's not. We don't do aspect good and bad. Remember, the aspects here are only to discover connection between planets, no more. So what matters is the planet, not the aspect. The aspect, we need to have an aspect, then we know there is a connection. So Cronus Moon is very, very strong connection. It's a good one. Cronus is always good. Okay. Cronus, let's say Saturn. They're midpoints, but I'm not doing midpoints yet. I'll do Hades. I'm just poking around just a little more, no more than that, okay? These are midpoints. Okay, this is enough for the aspects. Now I want to discuss something that's called symmetry. Symmetry. I'm not going to use symmetry too much, or maybe none at all, but as part of my presentation of the system, I want to spend 5 minutes on the idea of symmetry. The idea of symmetry is that, let's see if I can. Yes, I do remember doing it just before class. Okay. Was that one? Yeah. I think I did it on a 90-degree dial. Do you hear me? Did I click on anything? Do you hear me? No? Do you hear me now?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. My microphone, I pressed on something. No, maybe it was this one. Yeah, it was this one. Okay. What I just did, I put the arrow between Saturn and Cronus, and it's a midpoint between them. So while Saturn and the arrow is on the midpoint between Saturn and Cronus, the same midpoint is Venus and Hades. See Venus and Hades? So they share a midpoint. Two pairs of planets share a midpoint. It gets better because here is the Sun and Vulcanus here, and this one here, another midpoint. So we have 3 pairs of planets, and the midpoint falls at the same spot. This is a symmetry. I will not continue on that one. I just want to mention it in case we go forward or you hear someone else talking about it. So symmetry, the original idea is that when you have more than one pair of planets in this kind of arrangement, they all resonate together because they share a midpoint. They share a midpoint. So they resonate together. And the idea is that if there's a solar arc coming to one of them, or transit or something to one of those, the whole setup resonates, not just one planet, the whole combination resonates. Resonate meaning come into play. That's not easy to interpret. I'm not even trying, because to interpret 6 planets at the same time, I'm not doing that. But there's something else going on here. So the arrow is between Saturn and Cronus and the others, exactly between, which is exactly midpoint, middle. Look at Poseidon here on the black dot. The black dot is an octile, remember, 45. That means that Poseidon makes an aspect with that midpoint. You're not used to thinking of midpoints, especially not aspect with midpoints, but you will see eventually. So aspect can happen between 2 planets, but also between a planet and a midpoint. Once we have a midpoint, it becomes hotspot. especially if a planet is aspecting with that midpoint. So I just jumped the gun a little bit because I was going to talk about midpoint separately, but this is a good one because it fits in with the symmetry. So what we have here to recap is three three sets of planets, three pairs sharing a midpoint, and that midpoint where the arrow is makes a sesquiquadrate with Poseidon here, which means that Poseidon is also taking part in this whole operation because it makes an aspect. It sounds complex, but it's not. Why is it not? Because the dial is so visual that you don't need to think, you see it. All you need is to break it down later into interpretation. But to find it is baby stuff. Okay, so this is how I want to use Elon Musk for the 360. And now I'm going to move to the 90. The 90 is the jewel in the crown, I call it. Love it. The 90, I cannot live without it. So how does the 90 dial operate and how this created? What's behind it? Ah, said I did it before class. Here it is. I knew I had it. So this is now in color. What I just finished telling you. So this Elon Musk again. I found all these things and I did color coding, but I don't need to repeat that. Can you see that it's what we just covered? Just look at the
Yes,
colors
plus,
and you
plus
see the
Pluto.
yeah the colors. That's it.
Mm.
So I knew I had it.
Mm.
I have so much material I forget where it is. Okay. But now we really move to the 90 dial. So now this is diagrams. This is conceptual. We start conceptually. So what is the 90? The on the top left, you see the zodiac, and then you take the zodiac, 12 signs, and instead of drawing it as a circle, you draw it as a strip. Okay? A strip from 0 to 360. Okay? It's a strip. Think of it as a strip, not as a wheel, as a strip. If you take that strip, 12 signs, and you wrap them around a circle like this one. Look at the circle here. You wrap them around the circle. The circle is 30, 30, 30. Total of 90 sections. So if you start with Aries, Aries will fall here, Taurus will fall here, and Gemini will fall here. Agreed?
Mm.
That's it. 3 signs. We wrapped it around. So Aries is cardinal, Taurus is the fixed, and Gemini is the mutable. But we continue after the Gemini. We take the Cancer, it falls here, Leo falls here, and Virgo falls here. Continue. Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius. Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. We wrapped the whole zodiac 3 times, 4 times. Okay? 4 times. Yes. So this is representing the zodiac on a wheel by wrapping it around, so that all the modalities fall in one place. All the cardinals fall in one place, and so on. And the diagram at the bottom tells you that. So as the signs, the zodiacal signs wrap around, the 0 is at the beginning. So the 0 starts here, it ends here, and this is the 0 fixed. This is the arrangement, okay? 0 cardinal, 0 fixed, 0 mutable. This is the direction. Okay so far?
Mm.
Okay. And now I thought I had. Okay, I'll just keep going. So now we have an example of a real chart, a real traditional chart on the left, wrapped around a 90-degree dial. So just to illustrate, one sec. Let me see what I want to use. One sec. It's not the one I used to have. I used to have another one. But it's okay. So this chart is actually Barack Obama. Yes, it's Barack Obama. Okay. So if I start from the ascendant, 18 Aquarius, here is Aquarius falls at the fixed right here. Okay. Right here. Okay. The arrow, the small arrow at the bottom represents the middle of the fixed, 15 fixed, 15, exactly in the middle, 15. His ascendant is 18, 3 degrees to the right. Then we have the south node, or the node is at 27 Aquarius, which is fixed, 27 fixed, and here is the node at 27 fixed. The dial is very easy to count in because of the sections, the black and white sections. Let me do Musk because it's bigger and nicer. I'm changing Musk to the 90-degree dial, and here is Musk. Okay, so I'll explain something. If I want to know, because there's no numbers, no degrees, no zodiac. So if I want to know about Uranus, for instance, what the degree of Uranus, I use these sections of white and black, black and white, because each section is 5 degrees. So a section of white, section of black, white is 5. In the black, we have a 9.5, a 3, a 4.5. So the Uranus is 9.5 degrees of cardinal. This is cardinal. And I don't know which one, but it's cardinal. If I want to know which one it is, then I will look at the regular one. And Uranus is at the here, 9, you see, 9.5 Libra, 9.5 cardinal. So the sections help us count the degrees if I want to. Each of the degrees has a lot of precision, huge precision. You can see that a degree, you can read half a degree. Can you see that you can read half a degree?
Mhm.
Can you see that you can read a quarter of a degree? The tiny, and even below a quarter. So I can use these markings to count degrees and even minutes. And I don't need any pen and paper. I just use the dial to count degrees if I need them. Okay. So this is the 90 alive. And now we have, so they have the arrow and the bottom is the 45. So this one shows the node at 45 octile from the Aries point. We saw it before like that. We saw the node here. Remember we saw the node here is the octile, you see that?
Mhm.
And the Aries point? This is the same thing. But now it shows like this. And I don't need to know if it's a 45, it's a 135, it doesn't matter. It's an octile, it's an exact aspect, and this is what matters. I will try to minimize all this theory that I'm trying to do too fast because I want to get to the practical side. So I'm focusing on the markings, on the arrows, and on the dots. Now we see that Elon Musk also has Cupido at 22.5 semi-octile with the Aries point. This means that Cupido is connected with the Aries point. We couldn't see the 22.5, we couldn't see on the other dial, it was too small, but here it's magnified. The beauty of the 90 is that it magnifies the aspect. You can see all of them. You can see the 22.5. You can see the 11.25 is right here. This is 11.25. And this is the tiniest. This is 5 and 5/8. The tiniest dot is also an aspect. For instance, it works here. The arrow is still on the Aries point. Look at Admetos on this aspect, and this is 11.25. And you might say, is that an aspect? Can I use it? It's crazy. It's a number you never heard of. And I'm saying yes, because it's in the series of hard aspects. As long as it's a number inside the hard aspect, it's an aspect. Does it work? Yes. The only thing is how to interpret it, but it's an aspect. It's also an aspect with a node. It's a little bit too far, but it's too much of an orb. Talk about orbs. These tiny dots do not get an orb. Don't even dream of an orb. It's got to be exact. The one that gets a little orb is the 45, the arrow, on the arrow. Let me try to demonstrate that. Okay, this is exact. You see, his sun makes an exact octile with Mars and Hades. That's not, okay, I'll look for an orb, a bigger orb. Let's see, I'll go to this one. Okay, the arrow now is on Cronus moon. The other arrow is 1 degree off from Cupido. See that it's 1 degree, everybody?
Mm.
Is that an aspect, or can I consider it, or could I dismiss it? Most sources tell you that for an octile, for 45 or sesquiquadrate, you can use 1 degree orb. Some sources say more. I don't. I prefer less. And I'm telling you, the tighter the aspect, the more precise, the more manifestation you get. So honestly, I would not necessarily treat it as a connection, but some people might. Sometimes it matters which planet we're talking about. If this was sun and moon, I would consider it. But if it's one of those small ones, I might leave it alone. So I just wanted to demonstrate an orb of 1 degree, which I tend to not use. What about the 22.5? Here is the node here, the bottom. The node is half a degree away from the black dot. You see that? Half a degree. The arrow is on the moon, moon Cronus. If I wanted to include the 22.5, I would say Cronus moon aspecting the node by 22 by semi-octile. Will I take it? With this orb, half a degree. For this aspect, I will go as I might take it. Half a degree, but no more. This is almost borderline, but it's okay. Does it bother me that I'm losing a very wonderful aspect because it has too much in an orb? Not really, because we already saw how this fellow has enough points of connection with the world even without this aspect. So it's evaluation. But technically, this is borderline for the 22.5. I would take it because it's the moon and the node. I would take it. I would say Cronus moon equal node. By the way, you heard me say equal. It's a convention in our world, in the Uranian world. Instead of saying the name of the aspect or the number, all that, it's too much to say. So I just use the word equal. So again, for this one, I say Cronus moon equal node. See what and I even write it that way because I don't care which aspect it is. I care that they're connected. So this one equals that, they're connected. Let's find some others. Actually, Venus is on you see Venus is on the dot here, quite exact. So now we have an aspect between the moon and Venus, and the aspect is 11.25 because it's exactly between the arrow and the black dot. So now I can say that moon equals Venus. And you know that Moon Venus is a very female connection. And you know how many children he has with how many women, right? So it's quite fitting to have this female connection in his chart. And the node as well. Yeah. He has like 13 children with also many more than 2 women. He just gives it away. Okay. So what I have been demonstrating is connection between planets using the dots and the arrows. I also showed you how precision works because each degree is wide, big enough so we can go below a degree. You can see half a degree and a quarter of a degree. Okay, so far?
Mhm.
That's all I need to show you now. I think. Let me move back to this one. Right. So again, the planets are placed around the dial in their proper section by modality, not by element, by modality, cardinal, fixed, mutable. And then we look for aspects. So the 90-degree, the 90-degree dial and these aspect marks around it is a perfect demonstration of the, one second, of the wave that I've been trying to explain, okay? A perfect demonstration of this one. Once it's on any of the dots, planets or any of the dots, they're connected through the wave, through the harmonics of the waves. That's it. So 90-degree dial is a representation of a harmonics principle. Other than that, this is another example. We don't need to do that because we've seen it before. Or maybe I'll use this one. This is my original example. The chart on the left has Jupiter opposite Saturn exact, 28 fixed and 29 fixed. So both of them are fixed, but one is Scorpio, one is in Taurus. On the dial, they appear together. You see here?
Mhm.
Because they're both in the fixed. So it's not a conjunction. Don't call it a conjunction. Even what looks like a conjunction on the dial, don't call it a conjunction because it might be a square or an opposition because they're the same modality. Okay. But once we do things on the dial, we don't really care. They're together, make an aspect. Same goes for the sun and the moon on the left. Sun at 24 mutable, moon at 23 mutable, Pisces and Gemini. Here they are together on the dial. You see that?
Mhm.
In the zodiac, they're a square. On the dial, they're together. It's not a conjunction. So it's sun equal moon, sun together with the moon, whatever you call it, do not call it a conjunction. Okay. Another thing that could be useful. You see on the dial, you see Cupido and the midheaven on the dot. You see it here, okay? On the black dot, which is 22.5, semi-octile. And this semi-octile is from the Aries point for this particular chart. It's not a real person. I created it for the teaching. So arrow is on Aries, and these two are on the semi-octile, which means that if this is a person, that person has these two, Cupido and midheaven, connected with the world axis. Now, 22.5, here's what I want to tell you, that if you see in a regular chart, even before you go to the dial, you're in a regular chart, and you see any planet anywhere at 22.5 cardinal, such as here it is on the left, right away your brain will say that's connection with the world axis.
Mhm. Mhm.
This is what happens when you live with a dial, when you use the dial all the time. You're able to see things even in the regular chart. Before you even go to the dial, you can begin to observe things, such as regular chart. You see a planet at 22.5 cardinal, any cardinal, connection with the world axis. But of course, you will move to the dial. I'm sure you will. But it's nice to be able to use the knowledge even without the details of the tool. In the same way, by the way, I said 22.5 in the cardinal. Look at the other black dot on the right side. I'm pointing to. Do you see that what I'm pointing to?
Mhm.
This black dot, the distance to the Aries point is also 22.5. Okay, also 22.5. This black dot in the zodiac is 7.5 mutable. 7.5 mutable. It's in the area of the mutable, and it's 7.5 from the 0. Are you with me on that?
Yeah.
So again, I catch that when I see planets in the regular chart and I see 7.5 mutable, I catch it. My eye catches it. Oh, connection with the world axis. You don't have to, but it's nice to be able to see that. You don't have to because you will go to the dial and you'll see it right away. Okay. I think we've seen enough on this part of the demonstration. Because some of it is my old, yeah, same thing, same thing, same thing, same thing. Now I want to talk a little bit more about midpoints and finish the job. And then we'll move from here, we'll move to the midpoints on the dial itself. So about midpoints. Midpoints in the NCGR curriculum, it's like a topic by itself. Midpoints have become very popular in the world of astrology. They started with the Uranian system. The Uranian system started it 100 years ago, observing that. And then they became popular around the world, never mind the details. And they're looked at separately. People talk about midpoints even without the Uranian. They just mention midpoints. So midpoint, top left, you see planet A and B, and right here,
Mm.
and you see A/B, that's a midpoint between them. Midpoint between them. So the line represents that we're connecting A and B and the midpoint between them. So this midpoint here, the A/B, is what we call the near, closer to the A and B. On the other side, you also see A and B because it's also a midpoint, but it's the long way, all the way around, but it's still midpoint. So a midpoint on one side and on the other side is the same midpoint, conceptually. What happens here is the midpoint on the far side falls on another planet, planet X. So now we say the midpoint of A and B equal X, falls on X, and here it is. See?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And I deliberately wrote it with an equal, X equal. This kind of midpoint we call direct midpoint because it falls directly on the X as opposed to something else. So this is X equal A and B. The midpoint of A and B falls on X. Later on, when we discuss the book, we will see how we interpret the midpoints. And it's very easy to interpret these things. But first, I want to do the technicalities. So this is direct midpoint. And now on the bottom right, we have more planets. And in a circle, you still see A and B. You see A and B?
Mm-hmm.
A and B, and the midpoint is here, A/B. Planet X is still here. Planet X is still here. But now A and B falls here. This midpoint makes a square. You see 90? You see here? See
Mhm.
90? This midpoint is square to X, not falls on X, it makes a square. Normally you think of squares between planets, and I'm telling you this is square between a planet and a midpoint. Does it work? 100%. Once we have a midpoint making an aspect with a planet, it's super powerful. And we will see it in action when we do the book and all this stuff. But I'm telling you, aspect of midpoints and planets, powerful. The one thing is no orb, please. Just ignore, you don't want big orb. I use as minimum as possible, and you'll see that. My orb for midpoints is, orb mean between the midpoint and something else. My orb is under half a degree, 25 minutes at the most. That's my orb for midpoints. If you go higher than that, it's too vague. It's wishy-washy. My preference is precision. And on this kind of work, I use super precision, like laser beam precision. While in the traditional chart, I use big orbs, and you've seen me do that in natal chart. I use very large orbs, not here. So this is this A and B here on the right side is what's called indirect, because it's not doesn't fall on the planet, it makes an aspect to the planet. Does it matter? It doesn't. But I had to mention it. But it's not doesn't matter if it's direct or indirect, as long as its precision works like crazy. So this is A and B. Now we have two others on in the same wheel. You see C and D and E and F. You see them?
Mhm.
Now these two sets of planets, their midpoint is in the same place, same spot, C and D and E and F. That's the midpoint. And this midpoint is 135 sesquiquadrate from X. Does it work? You bet. Because again, it's hard aspect. 90, 45, 135. If it's exact, it works. And you will see that we can even use the smaller aspect. This is just squares and sesquiquadrates. I can even do smaller than that. I can do, and so on. So this is the idea of midpoints. Now, this is the midpoint tree. Someone mentioned it earlier today. Was it Rosanna? Someone mentioned a midpoint tree. So what's a midpoint tree? And this is useful to recognize because when you do it in solar fire will give you the trees. So here is X. I'm pointing to this area, okay?
Mm.
X on top. X is the planet from the diagrams. Now the other A and B, C and D, E and F, these are midpoints that fall on X, make an aspect to X, okay? So that's how it's described. It's like a shorthand. X equal AB, CD, EF. These three sets of midpoints, all of them make an aspect with X. That's what the meaning is. And when we move to solar fire, not today, you will see that solar fire uses exactly this format, like a tree. And we will see how we read that. If you cannot have Nova, you can read it from solar fire. Nova is preferred. Okay, so I did in the other text box, I have broken down. I have it broken down here. X equal AB, CD, EF, and so on. So the tree format is a summary of the whole thing without numbers, just showing you what falls on X. Okay, so far?
Yep.
That's it. But I'm done with midpoints. I could do more, but it's not necessary. Absolutely not necessary. So I'm skipping some things here. And basically, I'm just about done with it. Let me see what I have here. Yes, I like to do that, just to whet the appetite. Midpoints, which ones? There are gazillion midpoints, right? Everything can do a midpoint. You can get million of them. So we don't go for millions. We go for those that matter. Now, what is it that matters? Let me bring the dial up again. The actual dial. And from now on, I will not work with the 360 at all. I'll stick with the 90-degree dial. And I'm going to see, do I have view? So optics, midpoint lines. Yes, I have. By the way, look at for your information, even before we do Nova. If you bring up a chart and you switch to the dial view, then you can control what shows. And I choose, you see midpoint lines, a check mark, because I want to see that. I took away the check mark from the solar optics for a reason, but you will see it later. But I do enable midpoint lines. I cannot live without it. Okay. So we're still with Musk, and now the midpoints are marked with a line that goes from one planet to the other. So here, Poseidon on the left, Zeus on the right, and there's a line between them. That means that the midpoint between the two of them falls right here where the arrow is, okay?
Mhm.
So now I can do exploration. I will explore around. I will put the arrow, for instance, on the sun. Now we have a midpoint between Venus here and Cupido here. Again, all these women that he impregnates, okay? And so on. This is very rich because the arrow is on Sun, the other arrow octile on Mars and Hades, and now we have midpoint of Venus and Cupido and Admetos and Cronus and the Moon. Now we have two sets of midpoints plus the Sun plus Mars plus Hades. How do you interpret all that, right? It's a lot, right?
Yeah.
Don't worry, we'll get there. But I just want to draw your attention to the technicalities, what you can see. And all I did was put the arrow on the sun, and I forgot the semi-octal 22.5 is on the midheaven. Super rich, and the node is on the small dot. You see how many things are connected?
Mhm.
A lot. They're all connected. How do you make sense of it? One at a time. Don't worry. One at a time. But it begins to emerge. The picture begins to emerge when you see that. I'll put the arrow on Apollon. Interestingly enough, it doesn't have, actually it does have a midpoint. Here is what I can tell you. I'm doing it visually now. I noticed while the arrow is on Apollon, the planet, I call it the banker, I noted the black dot is here between these two, right here in the middle. You see that?
Mhm.
So visually, I can tell that it's a midpoint between the moon and these two here, making an aspect. So I can create that midpoint to be exact. And here it is. Tell you what I just did. I can create a midpoint manually by clicking and dragging. So I'll say it slowly and you will watch me do it because I want you to be able to do it on your own if you have it installed already. I'm clicking on the moon. The arrow is on the moon. And I want to create a midpoint from the moon to Zeus here. Are you with me on that?
Yeah.
I'm clicking on the moon. I'm holding the button, the left button, and I'm clicking and I'm holding the button. I'm not letting go. I'm holding the mouse, not letting go, and I'm dragging it towards Zeus. You see while I'm dragging, you see the little square?
Yeah.
And I'm going to Zeus and I will let it go. Let go the mouse, boom. The arrow created this midpoint. Let me do it with another planet so it's going to be easier for you to see. I'll do it with between Zeus and Venus, okay? Zeus and Venus. Easier to see because you'll see a red line. I'm clicking on Mars, dragging it to Venus. Let go. Now I see a red line between them. You see that?
Mhm.
The red lines tell you that this is the most precise midpoint you can get between those two when it's red. When a line is red, it's the ultimate precision. If the line is not red when we've seen them, we saw it here, the line was not red, it's black. Don't worry, it's precise enough. Solar fire, the nova is so precise, built on precision, that the orbit may be 10 minutes at the most. So don't worry about the color of the line, okay? But I'm telling you that if you create it manually, you do get the red line. So let me click on a few other planets and then we'll go to my list. I'll click, I was on the sun. I'll go to, I said Apollon. I'll go to Pluto. You see that? I didn't make it red. It came out red.
Mhm.
So it's super precise. Venus, Venus Vulcanus equal Pluto. Exact. The
Yeah.
midpoint between Venus and falls on Pluto. Because it's the 90 dial, because it's based on modalities, hard aspect, we don't know if that midpoint falls exactly on Pluto or makes a square to Pluto or an opposition. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
We don't care. That's the point. We do not care which aspect it's made to the Pluto, as long as it's made an aspect. Are you with me? It's a
Pretty cool.
different thinking. It's very different kind of thinking from traditional. Super different. Agreed?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not asking you to change your religion. I'm not asking you to convert. I will, because I will show you, we'll come to the point when we do integration. And integration will fill in the gap. So you will not need to change your religion. You don't need to convert to this one. They live together very happily. Very happily. So I'm still on the technicalities here. Okay, so this midpoint on Pluto is red because it's precise. That's also ascendant and Zeus, also there, not red. And then at the bottom, Admetus and Hades. So we have 3 sets of midpoints on Pluto. That's good enough. Okay, anything else? So I just spoke about the fact that a midpoint can make a square opposition, it doesn't matter, as long as it's exact, that's it. So once you remember that, your focus falls on the planets, not on the aspect, okay? The planets is what you care about. Which planets are connected, that's what you care about, that's it. Okay. We also have a connection with Poseidon here. Okay. Other than that, I think that's what I wanted to do with this one. Let me go back to, we're done, but I just want to see what next. Yeah. Let's spend a few minutes on this one. This is the fun of it. Which ones among, so when I go to the dial, first I poke around the way I just did, okay? I put the arrow on this and that. I poke around and I see what the chart already has, okay? But then I want to do better than that. I want to find, even if the dial doesn't show me immediately a midpoint, I'm interested. Why? So for instance, I want to find the midpoint between ascendant and midheaven. I want to have the midpoint between the sun and the moon. You see what I'm doing? The most important combination, the most personal one, Moon Venus, Venus Mars, Mercury Saturn, Mars Jupiter, Mars Saturn. Every one of them is a mouthful in terms of interpretation of a chart. Every one of them. These are, you know, it's not scratching the surface. It's those that are really, really, really super personal. And remember, it's a midpoint, but it's a midpoint between 2 planets that I care a lot about, the combination itself. And sometimes I will create the midpoint even if the chart didn't give it to me exactly or I didn't notice it. I say, let me look at it, and I do it. Let's do it with, let's see with Musk for a second. The ascendant is here and the midheaven is here. I don't even wait for the chart to give it to me. I will create it because I'm very curious. So I do exactly what I showed you. I'll click on one, drag to the other, boom, I created the midpoint and I can look at it immediately. You don't need to wait. If I have questions about relationship or even sexuality, the juicy stuff, I will do a midpoint of Venus, Mars immediately. I will not wait for here's Mars with Venus, drag, boom. Okay, I created it. Can I use it? Does it make an aspect to something? A little bit too far. It's too far from the black dot here, too far from Poseidon, so I'm going to leave it alone. But I am interested. Sometimes I'm interested in a midpoint because of solar arc. Maybe a planet is coming to that midpoint by solar arc. So the beauty is that you can create your own midpoints and look at them. And these are like my Bible, these combinations, because each one of these combinations is a whole topic in reading a chart. For instance, Jupiter Saturn is about property and business and things like that. Moon Venus can be female thing, even pregnancy. Venus Mars, sexuality and stuff. Mercury Saturn, combination of, has to do with communication and so on. So you see the text next to each one of them is the topic that you can get out of the midpoint, the topic itself, okay? You don't have this as a document. No, you do, I think, in the handout. I think you have them. The handout that I sent you has that as well. My favorite midpoints, and there's continuation here, some more. Now this is, so 1 second. These are with traditional planets, and here is some more combination with the Uranian planets. You see that?
Yeah.
If it's not in the handout, let me know and I will send these specifics to you, okay?
Mhm.
All these combinations exist in the book, by the way. You don't have to copy them, okay? But because I've been living with this topic for the last million years of my life, I kind of I know them. I know what I'm looking for, and I go right there. But I studied with a book. I started with a book, and I went through that book like crazy in order to get familiar with that, to see what else it can do for me. So you will start with a book, but eventually they'll begin to speak to you. And some of them you will literally remember without the book. Okay? So all this is out of the book, plus some additional words that I added, my own keywords. But the idea is from the book. The main idea is from the book, the core essence. So this is all for tonight. I hope.
Awesome. Yes.
Now, who here already has installed Nova? Just mention, okay, Adani, Jill, Rosanna, yes, no?
Uh,
You have a
I
Mac?
just downloaded it. It's not installed yet.
Okay. Folks, if you have a Mac, then it will work standalone. If you have Windows PC, then it has interface with SolarFire. So we'll do that specifically when I talk about the programs, the software, okay? Okay. But even if you installed it and it's without SolarFire, just because you have a Mac, you can already begin. You can enter a chart, you can enter the data, and then begin to play around with that one. Okay? Okay. My head is like this. I'm sure your head is also like that. Okay? I
Well
do
done.
I do suggest that you watch the recording at least once to remember all these things, and then go for the program itself. Any questions? Comment? No? Adeni, you had something? No?
The explanations were great. Even I went through this already, but I found so many nuggets in this today. You made really good explanations. Thank you.
So because you've been through that, I think you remember some of it from level 3, from the
Yeah.
midpoint. So in that case, what is it today that was more than what we did before?
Well, just like the astronomy a little more, and the waves. We didn't do the waves.
Right. No,
So
we
it was a
didn't.
little more expanded. Which
Well,
was
the
good.
wave thing I do only when I teach Uranian, because in regular astrology, we don't focus on hard aspects so much, not in that way.
Okay.
And the wave thing was necessary to show you how the dial is representing that. The
Yeah.
dial represents that. So you see, I say that the dial, the 90-degree dial, is more than just a dial. It's a philosophy. It's a philosophy about aspects. It's a philosophy about harmonics.
Mm.
If you heard the word harmonics in astrology, it goes directly into that, into harmonics. If you understand that. So if you keep the image of the wave and how aspects are different frequencies, one inside the other, then you're already in the harmonic topics.
Mm.
Okay.
Very true.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Night.
Thank you.
Good night. Looking forward to next.
Yes, next week.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.